If you tell me that you can buy cream cheese for cheaper, I say, yeah, but can you buy this quality of cream cheese? You asked for it. More cheese. No one that's got more cheese than this guy right here. About a year and a half ago, I received 4 gallons of milk that was about to hit its sell-by date, and the owner of this particular cafe that I was working at the time didn't want to mess with it. He said, here you go. And I said, cool, I'm gonna do something for the channel. That video was how to make farmer's cheese, and that video got wildly misunderstood. It was just a way to not waste milk. You don't need to wait until your milk goes bad. In fact, you should use the most fresh milk that's available to you. Long story short, there were a lot of questions that I get over and over again on that video. So what I'm gonna do is over the next couple of months, maybe once, twice a month, I'm gonna give you a new cheese video. We're gonna start very basic, the fresh cheeses, the sort of easy cheeses, and work our way more towards intermediate, and eventually we'll get to the harder stuff. And in those videos, I want to answer some of your most frequently asked questions, but not all at the same time. We still have a recipe to get to. You want to use the most fresh, least processed milk that you can find. Raw milk is best, but it's illegal to sell here in the US, so you kind of need to know a dairy farmer. So the next best thing, the word you're looking for, is pasteurized. Read that label. You do not want ultra pasteurized. Those proteins have been damaged. It's seen too high of a heat for way too long. Homogenized is fine. I bought non-homogenized milk, also called creamline milk, and it's called creamline milk because this cream all sits at the top. I had it lying down this way in the refrigerator, and I'm kind of glad I did, because you can see that all that cream rose to the top and kind of stuck to the glass. So we need to shake it. We need to shake it, and this goes before you make cheese or before you drink it. These are pints of heavy whipping cream, and the reason that I'm making 2 separate batches is because I'm going to conduct a little experiment. You see, the recipe I'm working off of wants me to hold this at around 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 24 degrees Celsius, for 12 to 16 hours. Now, the high today was 85, and it got down to about 68 overnight, so I don't trust it. So I borrowed this sous vide machine from my uncle, and this will hold a constant temperature for as long as I set it. And they run the gamut from like 80 bucks to 400 if you want a really nice one. This one was about 200, and I realized that not everyone has access or the means to grab themselves one of these. So the experiment I'm going to conduct is to temperature control one of these with the sous vide machine and leave one of these out at ambient room temperature, which is just gonna fluctuate as the day goes. For this recipe, I want a gallon of liquid altogether, about 4 liters, and I want that liquid to be somewhere between 11 and 13% butterfat. And that's why I'm doing 1 part of cream to 3 parts whole milk. You see that little bit of whole milk that's missing there? Put it in there. Displacement. Science! So we should have half a gallon of liquid total in each pot. And I'm going to set this one aside and just demonstrate with the one. I'm going to put this over a pretty low heat and stir gently but constantly. 75 degrees Fahrenheit is pretty low. It's pretty near room temperature, so it's going to sneak up on you fast. Make sure to keep your thermometer handy. And when I'm finally there, I'm going to take this off of the heat, and I'm going to add my culture, 1/8 of a tablespoon of culture, and we're just going to let that sit right on top. What I'm using is this Dansko MM100. I'll link all this stuff in the description. We're just going to let this culture sit on top for about 5 minutes. It's rehydrating, it's reactivating while still being exposed to the oxygen, so it gets the best possible start. In that farmer's cheese video, we added acid on purpose. We added lemon juice. It could have been any acid, but that's what makes the curds and the whey separate. This time we're adding bacteria to the pot. The bacteria will culture the milk and give off its own acid, achieving the same result. I'm using animal rennet, but there is vegetable rennet available to you if you really want to make a truly vegetarian cheese. For the gallon of liquid, 1 drop in 2 tablespoons or 1/8 of a cup or an ounce of water. It's about 28 milliliters. After about 5 minutes, we're gonna stir in that culture, come in with our rennet water, and once that's in, I'm gonna stir up and down 5 to 7 times. This is my room temperature batch only because it's in the bigger of my 2 pots and it won't fit in the sous vide container. This is gonna have to sit undisturbed. 12 hours is fine. I like 16 because it gives a much more complex depth of flavor. I'm gonna finish off my other batch and then I will show you the sous vide setup that I'm using. Here's the sous vide setup set to 75 degrees. You can see there on my phone where it's controlled. That's the sous vide machine back there, and it just keeps this hot water bath, or in this case room temperature water bath, room temperature for as long as I want it. So, see you guys tomorrow. Alright, this curd has been setting for close to 16 hours now. It's really nice and gelatinous and jiggly. I like to use a wooden chopstick to get this separated from the pot, to kind of break it up a little bit. A lot of people will take a knife and stick it down in their pot and cut this cheese. I don't like that at all. It's the same concept as don't put your knives in the sink, don't put your knives in the dishwasher. It's gonna dull your blade and it might scratch your pot. There might be some cheese enthusiasts out there that disagree with me, and to them I would say that I am more of a knife enthusiast, and it is way more important to me to preserve the integrity of my knives than the integrity of my cheese. You can also get wooden utensils, which I almost bought for this and then thought better of it. I have here a cheesecloth on top of a mesh strainer, on top of a half-gallon Pyrex bowl, just to keep the shape consistent and to catch my way. And then with a slotted spoon, I'm going to go under and bring out my cream cheese. Or if you don't mind waiting for it a little longer to drain, you can always just dump it right into our sieve. Next we have to let it drain, and while it's draining, that culture is going to be doing its work, and we're going to get a more and more flavorful cheese the longer we let it go. This wants me to let it hang at 55 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 10 to 13 Celsius, for 24 hours. That is lower than room temperature, and that is lower than the sous vide wants to go, but that's also higher than the refrigerator will go. So a good compromise, if you don't have something that'll allow you to hold that kind of temperature, room temperature, 8 hours, refrigerator, 8 to 12. But first I have to hang it. And last time I hung it on my baking rack, and a lot of people said, what if I don't have a baking rack? Oh, let me show you what my preferred method of hanging it in the fridge is. You need a stock pot that is large enough to handle these, and then once I have my rubber band on here, I'll stick a spoon in, tuck my end under, make sure it's secure, then I've got something to hang by. I'm going to set a timer for 8 hours, come back, pop that in the fridge. Ooh. The slotted spoon was my temperature controlled cheese, and the flat spoon was not. Now this process takes a little bit of time, so I know that I'm going to get asked whether it's worth it. Well, that's up to you. I get a lot of comments on the farmer's cheese video that it's more cost effective to buy the cheese, and that's not really the point. This is a hobby. It's meant to be enjoyed. Maybe it can be more cost effective if you get in the right situation, and maybe not. I do think though that as long as I'm using the whey, that this cream cheese is very cost effective. It yields quite a high amount. I'm going to put on some gloves. You don't have to wear gloves. Clean hands aren't going to hurt this. I'm just wearing gloves because there are a couple points where I'm going to have to wash my hands. There are a couple of tests I want to do to see if the temperature control was really worth it. And one, I'm going to weigh this cheese to see how much of a yield I got. This experiment is not truly scientific, but it's good enough for a home cook. And the temperature controlled cream cheese weighs exactly 600 grams, which is 1 pound 5.2 ounces. The non-temperature controlled cheese weighs 560 ounces, or about 1 pound 3.7 ounces. So we did get a little bit of a higher yield over here. Another very telling experiment is the color of the whey that the two expelled. The whey from the temperature controlled cheese is just a little bit more translucent than the whey from the non-temperature controlled cheese, telling me that there's more solids left in this liquid. But the true test, I think, is the taste test. Let's go with our test first. It sat out at room temperature. The room temperature fluctuated a little bit. That's already better than any cream cheese I've bought in a store. If you tell me that you can buy cream cheese for cheaper, I say, yeah, but can you buy this quality of cream cheese for cheaper? Let's try this very meticulously regulated 75-degree cream cheese. This is really nice. They both have a really great kind of creamy, a little bit tart flavor to them, but this cream cheese over here has just a little bit more depth to it. It keeps going for a little bit longer, very mouth-filling. So is the temperature control worth it? Well, that depends on you. This culture that I bought, which it was not that expensive, this is the small bag, has about enough for 20 batches of cream cheese, and there's other cheeses that I can make with it. So over 20, that 40 grams around, it multiplies up to about 800 grams of cheese that you're leaving back behind in the milk. It's around 1.5 pounds. And different cheeses need different incubation temperatures. So I would say that if you're going to dabble in cheese, you should pick recipes first that will do fine at room temperature, and if you really like it, then start investing in equipment. I'm always spilling whey all over my kitchen. So I'm making a couple of different types of cream cheese here. I want the temperature controlled cream cheese just to be plain. I really enjoy that flavor, and I'm breaking up the other batch in between bacon scallion and blackberry. This is a 1/4 teaspoon here, so I'm going to go with a 1/4 here, a 1/4 here, and a 1/2 over here. And this is why I'm wearing gloves, because it's messy. We're just going to smash and fold that in. We can always get this more put together with a rubber spatula a little bit later. Work in our bacon chive. One thing I did notice is that a lot of the cream cheese videos on YouTube when I was researching for this video were either what I made before, farmer's cheese, which is not cream cheese, but it's still soft and spreadable, and I made something like cream cheese out of it by adding some milk and spreading it on a bagel. Or they're showing you how to make yogurt cheese, which is fascinating. It's a really cool hack, but it does actually take longer than this. And it, in my opinion, kind of takes the fun out of it. Put some fresh gloves on so I don't get my blackberries all bacony. And I'm just gonna smash those up before I work them in. You can use any berry you want, any fruit you want really. If it's a harder fruit, like an apple or something like that, you may need to cook it down a little bit. You can also use jam if you want. Jam comes pre-sweetened, and that'll be a little bit easier. I'm gonna get these into some containers, and then for the taste test, I've got a little bit of a surprise for you. Well, my plan was to take these cream cheeses on vacation with me. I was going to be in a house full of 9 people, and I wanted to have a bunch of those people try out all of my different cream cheeses. But I couldn't herd those particular cats, so we're just gonna try these cream cheeses out next to this beautiful mountain sunrise. I'm in southern Colorado, right off of the Rio Grande River. Beautiful mountain country. It's just so pleasantly warm in the sun and so pleasantly cool in the shade. It smells like pine every morning when I go out to have my cup of coffee. I've got half regular, half bacon. That whirring sound you're hearing is hummingbirds. That blackberry went the first day. It was beautiful. It was like a sweet tart, a creamy sweet tart. It was wonderful. If you wanted a little more sweet than that, you can always sweeten it up with a little honey, a little agave nectar, even white sugar. All right, regular. This is wonderful. This is very creamy and a little bit tart, a little bit like cheese. I mean, it is cheese, so come on. This is an everything bagel, by the way. And it just brings out the flavor of the cream cheese and everything that I've made with it so far. Those jalapeno poppers were amazing. I've done little cheesecake cups with it. And then the bacon scallion. I did add a little bit more salt to this, maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon over that entire container that I had. Smoky bacon, savory onions, still get that creamy tartness from the cream cheese. This is wonderful. If you haven't seen those jalapeno poppers yet, I'm going to put that right up here. And then something else that I usually do with bagels is this garlic bread video that's going right down there.